We had this conversation the last episode and it was off the roof. So we had to bring in reinforcements because y'all were in your feelings and your facts and your stats. So this evening, we're going to address the topic one more time so we can lay down the law. And we had to bring in some special reinforcements. We're so excited to have them on the couch today. First, I'm going to introduce my sister from another mother, attorney LaShawn Watts, who has worked with the Children's Law Center. Okay, so she gonna bring the legal aspects of our feelings.
Let's just clarify: in the Bronx, New York, just so you clear. In the Bronx,
and you know that's another qualifier, right?
There you go.
Not just New York, but Bronx, right. New York. Okay,
exactly.
And we also have my brother from another mother, Dr. Charles Opong, who has his master's in education and psychology and his PhD in global leadership and change. Okay, so he's about to change your mind. So, Dr. Opong, we're just gonna jump right into it. Fathers want 50% of the rights. Moms are up in arms. Some moms, because they're like, "What you talking about? Hello, I gave birth to that child. How you gonna roll up and get 50%? What you think about that, Dr. Palm? What you think about that?
Listen, I think the jury is out on the overall yes or no. I don't think there's a hard no. I don't think there's a hard yes. Per mention, it really goes based off of the individuals. However, if we're just talking about fatherhood, I have to, stick my thumb out and say, hey, ladies, can I get a ride with you real quick? Let's talk real quick. And hitchhike on this situation and on this conversation and just kind of stick up for the men and say, hey, look, fathers have just as much as a right to this child as women, right? We're not talking about anatomically. We're not talking about from the aspect of women being on the delivery table and so on and so forth. A lot of these ideologies too tend to be outdated and archaic. To me, antiquated. So I just feel like at the juncture that we're at now, 2021 going in 2022, at one point we talked about, things are changing. You look at the aspect that, you look at how Hollywood and shows are kind of helping to kind of lead the construct when you're talking about LGBTQ plus rights. So you have a male and a male or a female and a male and so on and so forth. And you have binary. So it's just like, it's important to consider these constructs, but let's not forget about the father. Let's not forget about the actual sperm coming from a man going into a woman and fertilizing and bringing about life. And I just feel like men have just as much of a right to parent, and so much as fatherhood, but parent as much as a woman.
Wow. Well, we know on the last episode, a few of our panelists found this topic to be quite heated. So you have heard it from the guest male on the panel this evening, Dr. Joba, and we know you have plenty to say about this topic. So we're going to go right to you.
All right.
You heard what he said, what he said.
I heard it. And I agree. They do have a right to parent. My question is, what necessitates that push to get the right to? What is the problem that is like, why are we falling so behind with the parenting? Okay. We know all the traditional ways of it. If there's a separation, if there's whatever has to happen, the child is going to go, a lot of the times we know statistically, whether legally, whether morally, whatever, the child ends up with the mom. But even if the child is with the mom, what is stopping the man from being a parent?
The mother.
Oh, come on.
The mother. That's what stops.
It can happen. It can happen. Does it always?
Does happen.
Is that always the issue?
Most of the time. So most of it, I would say, honestly, most men want to be involved in their children's lives, regardless of what has gone on between him and the mother. I don't think this is something new that fathers want to be involved. I have always known fathers to want to be involved in the upbringing of their children. I think now it's just gotten to a point where men are like, you know what? We're actually just going to start going to court to enforce the rights that we should have. I think before, a lot of men would just say, you know what? If she don't want me involved, I've tried. I'll wait till the child gets 18 and I'll try then. I know a bunch of men that will say, I'll just wait till the child gets older and he or she can make up her own mind and decide for themselves what they do at that point. Mm-hmm. And so now men are like, you know what? No, I'm not going to wait till my child turns 18 to try to establish a relationship with him or her. I'm going to start now. So yeah, if I got to take you to court to see my child, that's what I'm going to do. And honestly, I know a lot of men that had to go to court just for visitation, and it makes no sense. And you know, the number one reason why the mother didn't want, most of the time, the reason the mother didn't want the father to see the child, he's not paying child support. That usually be the first thing. He can't see the child if he can't pay for the child. I'm sorry, that's not the law in the state of New York. Child support and visitation are separate issues. He could never pay a dime for the care of that child, but still has the right to visit and see that child. So if support is what your issue is, ma'am, you're gonna have to find another issue, because that father has a right to see that child.
That's an interesting point, and I'm glad that our attorney brought up the fact that most men do actually want to be involved in their child's life, because that hasn't really been the stigma specifically for Black men, right? The stigma has been the fatherless home. However, we do know that the CDC published a report that stemmed from evaluating fathers and fatherhood between 2006 and 2010 that actually not only debunked that theory, but actually proved that actually Black men are the most involved ethnic group in the daily involvement of their kids' life. So we have been lied to, y'all. They've been telling us that Black fathers don't want to be involved, but they do want to be involved. So the question is, how do we balance the rights of fatherhood versus, okay, I'm midwife, I'm not even gonna finish my question. Go right ahead.
She danced with it. She was dancing with it.
You know, I struggle. You know, I like to talk over people, so I'm practicing something new.
I don't think you can finish my question. Go ahead, Olivia. What you got to say?
Go ahead. Your question was, so how do we balance
fatherhood with the rights of mom? Because the argument is moms gave birth. How do you repay a woman for bringing life into this world? How do you do it? You do it by giving her preferential treatment. That's the argument.
Well, I will say, I know that this was a controversial topic, but as a child of divorce who was raised by both of her parents, my father is an American Black man, and he said he didn't have children for other people to raise them. So when my parents separated, he moved up the street, and we didn't have to change schools, and we would do 1 week with my mom and 1 with my dad, and we would go back and forth like that. So we had clothes in one house, we would pack every week. And yeah, at first it took some getting used to, but neither one of us, my brother and I were about a year apart, neither one of us wanted to be away from either parent. And so it ended up being like an absolutely amazing childhood because our parents got along, and it wasn't that way at first. There were some issues there, but you know, they got divorced when I was 8. And so we went all through the rest of elementary school, junior high, and high school that way. And so like my father was the more structured one. He was the one who was like real dependable about like school and health insurance and all of that. And my mom was the more like fun, outgoing one. We would go out to eat at sit down restaurants 4 times a week. My dad wasn't about that. We was cooking. So it was really different, but they did go co-parent. So it wasn't like when we were with one parent, the other one didn't exist. It wasn't like that. I mean, we knew that the rules that existed that my dad laid down, we weren't gonna be able to talk crazy to our mom because all she would have to do was call our dad, and we knew. So I think if a man wants to be involved, then he should be involved. And I always thought, even in the 90s, because this happened in the 90s, that men who didn't take care of their children because the women were making it hard, I always thought that was a cop-out because the law has always been there. And so just like my father knew that he had rights, they didn't have to fight about it because my mom was like, if you wanted 50-50, there was no child support because they had us 50-50. And so I just kind of always felt like that. But I know last time it was said that like, you know, it's not great for the kids to go in between 2 households. I think it's not great for the kids when the parents can't co-parent. and when you have to choose a parent. When you have two parents who want to be involved and are going to raise their children, then you should do everything possible to do that. And if, again, like, choose better partners so that you don't have to deal with this craziness and immaturity and selfish behavior, because that's what it is. And we're not always perfect. Sometimes you don't make the best choices, but if you kind of make choices with intent in this life, hopefully if your marriage doesn't work out, you can still put your kids first.
But what if it's not a marriage?
How many women will actually start a business with, let's say you're a woman and you go into business with a man. You literally put down 50% of what it takes to start this business. And imagine a man telling you, okay, you go away now. I'll run this business because I'm better at it because I'm a man. And you on the sideline and say, okay, well, he's a man and he's more business minded, so I'm just going to let him run our business and not ever check in. That's literally what some women are asking men to do. Like, you put in 50% on this kid, but I just need you to go away because I can handle it and do it better than you. Really?
50%? Is it 50% though?
Is it? Yes. Can the egg fertilize itself, or did I miss something in biology?
But did he put it out?
Yeah, but being a sperm donor doesn't make you a father, doesn't make you a parent. Just like being an egg donor doesn't make you a parent either.
Pushing a baby out your vagina don't make you a mother either. Because a lot of women have babies and they're not nurturing, loving, caring, or any of the sort. So you could say it both ways. Just because you have a baby don't make you a mother.
No, I 100% agree. That's what I'm saying.
But you still had the baby. You still had to go through the process of labor, which I can't think of a way to repay a woman for labor.
Well, that just happens to be biology, that the woman was the one selected to give birth. If the man was the person having birth, that doesn't give him superior rights. It's a 50-50 thing. We both put in half on the baby. I hate to quote who said it. On the baby.
No, but that's just the beginning. What about, like, if we're talking about having rights later in the child's life, if you haven't been there, that does create some resentment, right? My mom and dad were amicable, but I'm talking about, you ain't been around at all. You haven't helped, you haven't put in on this except for at the go.
Right. And also, I don't want to trivialize the whole process of pregnancy, right? Like, we all know that the stats have been released that Black women die at significantly faster rates when it comes to pregnancy-related complications, and that overall women in this country are dying as a result of pregnancy and childbirth. So it is not an easy feat to go through pregnancy, and that's just the physical aspect of it. Keep in mind that women also more likely to have to take time off from their work, sometimes lose their jobs. So it is a lot of sacrifice the woman has to make to bring life into this world, even beyond the physical aspect. And so, can we truly equate the fatherhood rights to someone who actually went through that whole process?
If it's not in the best interest of that child.
Not only that, it's not like we didn't have a choice in who delivers the baby. We didn't have a choice in gestational process. That's a God thing. That's not women said we want to go through 10 months or 40 weeks of this and have your nose spread and your feet do this. And that wasn't like we had that option. So I understand what pregnancy means and the process, but it's not like we have a choice in that. So you can't fault the father because biologically he's not the one to bring life into the world. But once this child is here, it should be a 50-50 thing.
I agree.
Because I pushed it out. Okay, I'm better than you. What?
She is.
Yeah. I think Dr. O about to fall out his chair. If Dr. Moore, please call on him.
Let him talk.
Please.
Let him talk.
Yes, please.
Okay.
Oh Lord. Oh my gosh. Okay. American society, Western culture has, to me, and qualitative research says that families within societies have a very, very minimal chance at overall success and survival. We're talking about the well-being of the woman. So let's put the child aside. Let's say the child is in the scenario, or children are in the scenario, and you have a mother and a father relationship. We're not talking about marriage. You have a mother and a father relationship, and the father's alive. He's not in prison. He's not dead. He's alive. and you have this father that is absent, not because he wants to be absent, but because society has chosen to take the side, and Black men face this the most, right? If you're talking about, somebody mentioned child support. Child support is a construct. In fact, if there was to be some type of agreement where myself and you as the woman have an agreement as to where I'm going to be putting in this much, right? We have either a verbal or contractual agreement that this is what we're going to do. That's just what it's going to be. Western culture and society has made it and so that I have quite a few friends, right, who are not married and they have children. The moment they have children and they find out that the man is working, but they see that there's no marriage, right, in the court of law or what have you, he's going to start getting garnished for something called child support. And to me, I just feel like that's just one of the things that work against women, not against men. It works against men socially and emotionally, but it works against women even more because you don't have the help. You don't have the reinforcement, and you don't have the wherewithal of what it takes to actually raise a boy or give a young woman or a baby girl what it is that she needs from this male perspective. Another thing I wanted to say is that we don't have, my attorney said it well. We don't have, like, we didn't choose this. I didn't choose this life. It chose me, right? I was born a man. I'm going to die a man. You were born a woman. You're going to die a woman. Whether you have that choice, whether you have that choice, or given that you have that God-given privilege to actually bring children into this world, I don't have that. I will never bear children. So I shouldn't be demonized or ostracized from my children's life because you're, the Black woman with the black fist, and you hold the power, you got vagina power, and you just hold it all. And I say that to say that I think it's important to consider the fact that at what rate are children not being raised without their fathers, as opposed to them being raised with their mothers and not having all the tools it is that they need in life. I can't have children, but I can choose to be a father. You have both, right? You can choose to be a mother, and you have no choice but to be a mother, given that you have child or you're with child. But I have to choose to be a father. You get what I'm saying? Like, I can be a sperm donor and bring kids into the world, but that doesn't make me a father. It just makes me a sperm donor, right? But I have to choose to be a father. And I feel like that's a lot harder because you have gone through the reins of being able to have this spirit, have this soul, have these eyeballs, have this brain, have this person who either has a name prior to birth and labor or not, right? Like, you have this personalization with your baby that I will never have. So now I have to choose to be in my child's life. I just want to share this real quick. David Blankenhorn, right? He shared some qualitative research in that fatherlessness is the most harmful demographic trend of this generation. It is the leading cause of declining child well-being in our society. It is also the engine driving the most urgent social problems. Then he goes on to say, from crime to adolescent pregnancy to child sexual abuse to domestic violence against women. Yet despite the scale of social consequences, fatherlessness is a problem that is frequently ignored and denied. And it's ignored and denied at the highest level, right? In the court of law, or I don't know if you want to call it the criminal justice system or the legal system or the justice system, right? But it is a system that works against not Black men, not white men, but men, fathers. And it works vehemently against them, right? Without remorse. And I just feel like there needs to be more women, more mothers, right? Let alone women, but more mothers who advocate in the stead of men who can't advocate for themselves because we're silenced. And that's just something that's just not talked about. We're not talking about the aspect of, and I mentioned this before, of women being able to bring children into the world. We're talking about the social construct that men are ostracized from.
But I think it's the extreme that's gone the other way, because as early as the 60s, women didn't have these rights. These things were created because men had all the rights, right? If a woman left her husband, she had no rights. She couldn't even earn a living. The kids were taken. I mean, so I understand what you're saying. I think perhaps it has swung to maybe an extreme, but you also have to look at the situation. You have to look, if we're talking about Black people, our history with slavery and why families were separated in the first place and how that trend even began. Then you're talking about the criminal system. I mean, there's so many aspects to why there is fatherlessness and why perhaps a whole group or generation of women feel like they have no choice but to be this way. right? And I'm not talking about the vengeful women, people who are just like trying to weaponize motherhood. There is that. There are people like that. But there are also situations where you feel like this is what's best, or these are the only choices that I have, because people haven't seen the examples of co-parenting, of being able to be of two different households and make it work. So I think, like you said, it requires education. It requires, what is it called? Like when you mirror what you see, right? And then there are, the generational things. I mean, it's multifaceted. It really is.
Yeah, that's an interesting. Go ahead.
Sorry, can I interject at one point? So one of the things that keeps kind of coming to mind at this point in time is in the when we look at the traditional sense, right? Going back to what Olivia was saying, even back in the 60s, like women leaving their husbands, if that happened, right? One of the bigger things that comes about with it is now who's actually caring for the kid? Because usually when you're looking at those traditional families, when it comes to who's at home caring for the kid, it's usually the mom. Now the dad is there. So there's been a change. I feel like there's been a change in what's happening now, because it's more of fathers taking an active role in their kids' lives. That wasn't always the case.
In the rearing of them, you mean?
Yes, in the actual, because half of the time, the men back in the day, they don't know what to do with the dirty diaper. They just didn't do it. We've now been including a lot of men in the child care and in the child rearing, and a lot of men are actively wanting to. There's still some jerks that don't, but they're actively wanting to take care of their kids. Take care of your kids. I get, yes, there's the vengefulness, and that is where you get into the legal aspect of it. For me, it's always take care of your kids. Do the taking care of the kids. It's not something that's been traditionally done, but take care of your kids. Olivia, girl, your parents are the bomb. I'll tell you that right now, because a lot of people will have never experienced anything like that in all of their lifetime. This is the first time I've heard of it, and it sounds great, actually. But
it's ups and downs, but
always with anything else, as with anything else. But you be active and take care of your child's life, and this is where my position was in terms of like, yes, what is the push for the legality at this point in time? I get, like I said, yes, there's the vengefulness, but there's also on the other side where it's like, if the father has more funds, more opportunity, whether or not he's actually rearing the kids, he might try to take them from the wife to punish the woman because whatever. So it can go in both ways.
Yeah, and
but,
I think also, go ahead. Sorry.
Go ahead. No, go ahead.
Now, I was just going to say, in terms of when we talk about historical, like, yes, oftentimes in the past, the default has been the mom, right? Men have actually benefited in some cases from the ability to work. Right? I think that's what you're getting at, right?
Yep.
Dr. Trissa? Yeah, and men in the past have benefited from the fact that they could walk away. And traditionally, it was the women who were left with the kids, and have to figure out how to be a mother, how to be a provider. And so now it's kind of like, now we're swinging the pendulum in the other direction, but really it has been the default of the woman, and society's attitude to a certain extent remains that it is the default, is the expectation that if dad walks away, that the expectation is that she's left with taking care of the kids.
But you go ahead, Karen.
Okay, my question is to since we only have one male on this panel, I know of a friend that her dude was raising the kid from day one, from birth all the way up to adolescence. When he got to adolescence, the mom, I don't know, always acted funny, whatnot, right? So now he's with another family, another woman. He didn't have kids with her, and he's still being a great father to this child. But why doesn't I want to know from a male person, why doesn't a male wants to fight for their kids once they've been put on child support? They wasn't on child support the whole time, but once they get to a certain point, they put on child support, and then they separate themselves, and then they don't, I guess they try to call and the kids not answer, or whatever the mom might be saying and stuff. Why doesn't the father push so much to go back into the legal part to fight for that relationship that he had from birth to adolescence?
Yeah.
What's up with that?
That's a very great question, Karen. What's brought to my mind is a very good friend of mine who went to elementary, middle school, and high school with. And he's actually the godfather to our daughter. He's demoralized. When you have the woman, let me stop saying the woman, right? Because that's a misnomer. When you have a mother, right? When you have the baby mom who is, or who will stop at nothing to make sure that you're unhappy, because I want to say the majority of men, and I can speak for the majority of men on a globally, not just here in the United States, because I'm from the sub-Saharan part of Africa, West Africa. So when you look at just in Ghana or even in Nigeria, it is every man's joy to have a son or even a daughter, a child. Here in America, when you have someone who you are on the outs with, you also have to look at the societal ramification of what comes with that. So if your baby, that's what I say, it's cheaper to keep her. Because if your baby mama don't like you, if your baby mama don't like you, you already got society ready to be like, all right, let us know where to hit him at. And the first place they're gonna hit you at is the pocket. Why don't men fight? Men who are shut out fight as hard. They're demoralized. What can he possibly do? It's like one, and since we brought up the subject of enslavement, imagine trying to run away so many times from the plantation that you were born into, knowing that inside of you, freedom is better than this, even though you've never tasted freedom. And you're trying to get away every time. And every time you try to get away, you're taught an even deeper lesson than the last one. That's what it feels like. That's what it's like for my brothers, right? My three brothers who go through this, and some of their homies who go through this. So I'm just looking at it from the standpoint of a firsthand situation, not even from a research and empirical data and all that mumbo jumbo. This is a real life perspective. And to answer your question, Karen, which is a very great question, they're demoralized emotionally. How can I move forward? And why would I even fight for something it's worth fighting for? But man, my beard is getting grayer. You know, men die at a faster rate, right? Research shows men die at a faster rate than women. Why? It's not because they bungee jumping. It's not because they drag racing. It's stress. It's stress. Research shows that it's stress. It's not cigarettes. It's not gun violence. It's stress, right? Stressed out from going to jail because I couldn't pay my child support. Stressed out from having to work community service. If I'm working community service, how can I go work and put food on the table? And then first, we were talking about, we have to look at post-Reconstruction and what life was like in the 20s and the 30s. That's my baby girl screaming in the background. I'm sorry about that. You know, so if you, she's calling mom.
Fatherhood.
So, exactly. You know, that would otherwise be me because I try to really, she just screamed at my wife when my wife went in the room like, where you been? Like, but I'm just looking at it from the standpoint of, it's just unfair. And I'm the last to come after any woman or any mother, because I know that they brainwash most women to make it seem like the man is a problem, but it's not the man, it's the way society is structured. If you go to Denmark, men have 6 months paternity leave. Means I get to actually have skin to skin with my newborn. I get to raise him or her or them. I get to actually pour myself into them from a societally constructive way and not have to raise them by going to work. Back in the days, we used to go to the steel mill or go work at the power plant or something like that, right? And I'm here for my kids. I give them money. I set up a trust fund, but do they know you? So that's kind of where I'm coming from a firsthand standpoint. So we can look at it from both sides and still say that no matter what, men are the losers. And I feel like we can talk about this all day, and there can be little constructive ways where we can actually build one another up as male and female, father and mother. But the man is always going to be the loser, always.
No, like some research has been showing that it was always a presumption that the mothers always have rights to, all the rights have always gone to the women. And I don't think that's necessarily the case, because isn't the lawyer may be able to speak to this, but no state grants the presumption that mother automatically gets the custody of the kids, correct? Doesn't each court evaluate based on what's in the best interest of the child?
No. When they're, just think about it like this: when the child is born, no one has custody, because custody is a legal piece of paper. So
is that versus marriage versus single? And is that, because can you clarify that?
In terms of if you're a married couple that have a child, it is yes, that the husband and wife share the custody.
Exactly. Okay, thank you.
If the parties are unmarried, mom just automatically assumes she has custody until someone goes to court and says otherwise. So it's really possession as opposed to a legal right of custody. So until someone goes to court and establish, and women always find this out when they go to file for the passport, because you need both parents' signature on the passport request. And that's usually what prompts someone to come into court to ask for a legal document saying who has custody. But the presumption usually is in court. And I want to preface this by saying I worked as an attorney for children in Bronx Family Court for over 5 years. So I didn't represent either parent. I represented the child as the attorney. And so it's usually assumed that the mother is going to be the primary caregiver. The mother is going to be the primary parent. And let me tell you, when the fathers want to fight that custody arrangement and let's say ask for a 50-50 split, or to have some sort of say in the upbringing of the child, he has an uphill battle because the court just assumes the mother is the primary nurturer and is the person that is going to provide the best for the kid. And what the father is supposed to do is provide financially and then have his weekends. And that's usually how the courts want to see it. And I'm like, that's unfair. And for me, I think that's wholly unfair. Like if Go ahead.
A question for you, Dr. Watts.
We gonna hold that thought because we need to wrap up. So clearly, we need a part 3 on this topic because we didn't even talk about what does it look like to have 50-50. Have the kid coming and going Mondays through Wednesdays and then Thursdays through Saturday. What is that doing to the mentality of a child? Child, we ain't done with this topic yet. So come on, Attorney Watts, where can they find you on social media?
I am LaShawn Watts on Facebook, Instagram, and Twitter.
Awesome. And come on, Dr. Opong, where can they find you?
Hey, thank you for having me again. Dr. Charles Opong on all social media platforms.
You guys are awesome. We're so thankful to have y'all. Y'all, we are Healthy Bump Club. I'm the hand behind the handle. We're on YouTube, and we're going to figure out where our new home is on Instagram. But it's going to be something similar to Healthy Bump Club when we figure out our Instagram. I'm going to kick this off. But stay with us. We will be back. And we thank you guys for following. See y'all next episode. Bye.
Ladies, God bless you guys. Thank you guys for having me.